And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
Yo, Lord Willin, Jeff Canarsie, Mob Talk Radio. Check it out. Yo, we stay quiet like Russell Buffalino when things will get ugly like Pepsi's death in Casino. Who do we know? No one, nobody. But we're all well respected like Della Croce and Gotti. I know wild nights, Havana nocturne. Light up a cigar and watch your spot burn. You'll get patty whacked, I'm tough like Irish dock workers. Rubber guys with guys, hooligans and block lurkers. Corner berserkers, street savvy soldiers. You owe, you better pay. Don't make me say I told you. Code you don't betray, I say what I mean. Providence and Brooklyn all the way to the bean. I'd rather be unseen, like Vinny the Chin. I don't gotta go to Vegas to see cities of sin. Pull the pin, drop bombs like Danny Green. I write homicide like the murder machine. Lansky Luciano, mastermind the racket. Up in the clam house with $1 million in my jacket. Move around when the streets get darker. Pay homage to real bosses like Gambino and Patriarcha. Mob talking, but you don't talk to the mob. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, we stay on our job.
And welcome to Mob Talk Radio. We are back after a 2-week break. I just wanted to thank everybody for the messages. I appreciate it. I just kind of would rather keep that simple and just say it's good to be back. And we're going to do what we usually do here today. We got a big Q&A, obviously. We're going to talk about Frank Cali a little bit. Now, here's the thing on Frank Cali. I can't really add more facts to the matter. I think everything that's out is out. But do I have some theories? Sure, absolutely. We can play around with a couple of those theories. But if you're listening to the show to really get more information, you're not going to really get more information than that. I just sort of have a theory about a couple of things, and we'll play around with that. Now, one of the questions that I did get is really kind of a big question, but it's an important question. And so what I've done is I've wrapped around the back end of the show to sort of answer that question in a very long sort of fashion. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't. It's going to make me a mark, no doubt, I think, but it's something that I think should be discussed that often isn't. I've been to a lot of these organized crime websites and stuff, and I sort of peek around and look at different things, not for information, but I'm just curious as to what's being talked about, and realistically, nobody's talking about what I'm going to talk about. It does involve organized crime, and it does involve other sort of facets, but I think it's something that clearly should be addressed, and if that gets me in some sort of jam, then that's one thing, but, you know, I'm protected under the First Amendment right, and I'll continue to do so. I'm never going to back down and not just speak my mind. That's what this is about. It's about being willing to discuss a topic and just put it out there. It's up to the people who listen to this show to decide on their own. They can agree with me, they can disagree with me, or whatever the case may be. But the minute that I really sort of take a back step and I stop doing what I'm doing, then I'm no longer me. And so it may infuriate people, and that's besides the point, but I have to do what feels right for me, and I think that this particular topic is an important one. It's been in the news a lot, especially the last 2 years, and I think it's something that there needs to be a discussion on. So that's pretty much the way we're going to roll with this today. But I'm kind of going to jump right into the questions, only because, you know, I don't want to sit here all day and ramble about stuff. So we're going to jump right into the Q&A now. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Frank Cali for a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the actual question that I got. All right. First question, how accurate was The Godfather? Not really accurate. It's accurate to the extent of it was modeled after the Bonanno crime family, some of the things that Joe Bonanno wrote about, and etc. But it really, really stops right there. The pageantry, I always call The Godfather like an opera, and that's the way that it was filmed. That's the way it was. But realistically, it was not historically accurate to any extent. In fact, it was actually Russell Buffalino who was sort of in control of the way the screenplay was. They didn't want the word mafia mentioned in it. That was one of the things, and I've talked about that before. But But if you're looking at The Godfather and the extent of hierarchy, yes, there's that, and there's the government politics and the lawyers and all of that kind of stuff. That's similar, but that's not real. I think it's a version of organized crime on steroids. It's a version of organized crime for the theater. So it's not accurate. It's definitely not accurate. I have always said on this show, and I will continue to say, the most accurate portrayal of that lifestyle I've ever seen is Goodfellas. Even The Sopranos, to some extent, I thought was more accurate. Those are the two most accurate things that you can see if you want to understand what that life is. That life is money and violence, and sort of the subplots in The Godfather were good, but it's a film. It's a film. All right. Do the Gambinos have somebody that will step right in for Frank Cali, or will we see internal fighting? You're not going to see internal fighting. You just would have to automatically assume that if somebody is no longer in charge, then somebody steps up. That's just the reality of it. And I don't want to go too far into that, to be honest with you, but I think it's safe to say that whatever changes needed to be made as a result of this have already happened, and that's that. But it not internal fighting, and I'll get a little more into that when we talk about Frank Cali. All right, in the movie Bugsy, Bugsy beat up Joe Adonis. Is that true? No, it's absolutely not true, but I know what they were borrowing off of, and we're going to talk a little bit about Virginia Hill later on. Because one of the questions I got was revolving around Virginia Hill, and she was a complete whore to begin with, and she was the mob's front person in a lot of different things. And her and Bugsy had this relationship, and Joe Adonis had a relationship with Virginia Hill for years that went back and forth, ultimately until she tried to shake him down, and then she dies. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But no, that's not true. He didn't beat up Joe Adonis. What they probably did was borrowed it from something that happened prior to the Havana Convention, and that's more or less Bugsy beat the crap out of somebody who was getting a blowjob. I hate to say it, but he was getting a blowjob from somebody that Benny Siegel thought was his, and the guy was made, and Bugsy did beat him up, and that created all kinds of fucking problems for him. So that's where that story probably remotely came from. But no, he didn't beat up Joe Adonis. All right, was the Bath Avenue crew the last of the minor league La Cosa Nostra guys? Probably so. I'm sure there's fringe guys now. I don't like to talk about the Bath Avenue crew. I don't have a whole lot of respect for them. I don't have a respect for anybody that was really in that crew. Half of them became rats. So, I mean, I stay away from that topic. I always have. Doesn't mean to say that they weren't tough, but minor league, absolutely. All right. How accurate was Frank Regano's book? I'm assuming you're either talking about one of two books. You're either talking about Mob Lawyer from the inside account of who killed Jimmy Hoffa and JFK, or you're talking about Mob Lawyer, the Mafia's attorney tells all. In case you don't know who Frank Regano is, Frank Regano was a mob lawyer from Florida who defended Santos Trafficante, Carlos Marcello, and he also served as a lawyer for Jimmy Hoffa at one time. In the book Mob Lawyer, Regano makes the allegation that Santos Trafficante confided in him shortly before he died that he and Carlos Marcello had arranged the murder of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. Regano also alleged that Marcello told him about the CIA and the plot to kill Castro years before that came out in public. Regano also represented Henry Hill and Jimmy Burke in 1972 when Hill and Burke were charged in connection with extortion down in Florida. And he also represented Santos Trafficante in the Donnie Brasco trial, which ultimately Trafficante was found to be not guilty of all charges. Now, as far as the JFK assassination, when it comes to Frank Regano, is that Regano basically in his book said that he met Jimmy Hoffa at the Teamsters headquarters in Washington, D.C. Then he went on to deliver a message to Trafficante and Carlos Marcello days later in a hotel in New Orleans. He said he was basically chosen by Hoffa because Trafficante and Marcello were also represented by Regano, and so therefore Regano could pass messages between the three, and then they could claim lawyer-client privilege. So that kind of makes sense. Regano would further allege that Trafficante summoned him to Florida in 1987, just 4 days before he would die, and he told Regano in a Sicilian that Carlos fucked up. We shouldn't have killed John F. Kennedy. We should have killed Bobby instead. A lot of people have refuted his claims, including Vincent Bugliosi, who basically said that Trafficante was not in Tampa that day, and actually medical records backed that up, that he was in fact in North Miami Beach getting dialysis treatments. So that sort of refutes everything that Regano has said. So really, at the end of the day, it becomes a tongue-in-cheek, is that this is a lawyer who is talking about a lot of historical events, saying he has proof, but then sort of offers no proof. It becomes a he said, she said. Regano, prior to dying, had said that he could produce 3 witnesses that could back up his claims, but yet he never did. So is what he said true? I'm not sure. I can't tell you. I wasn't with the guy. I didn't know what he talked about. But I think when other attorneys sort of come forward and say, no, here's proof that this didn't happen. Here's proof he didn't meet with him here because here's medical records that show where he was. So I think that pretty well refutes it. And so is all of it a bunch of shit? No, there's probably some truth to it. But I think a lot of people that write books like this have a tendency to stretch the imagination. It sounds better. It sounds better if he meets Trafficante in some seedy little place and Trafficante's on his deathbed and says, we should have killed this guy and that guy. It makes for a better story. So, how true is it? I don't think we're ever going to know. I really don't think we're ever going to know. But obviously he's trying to sell a book, and people that are selling books have a tendency to, and I've said this about a lot of different people, they tend to overinflate the truth, and they sort of, deflate what the actual facts of the case are. So whether it's true or not, we're never going to know. I personally don't buy it. I don't think that Santos Trafficante and I don't think Carlos Marcello are going to tell him, of all people, that. I think that if that's the way that it went down, I don't think there's any way in hell they're going to tell a lawyer that. Because a lawyer can be subject to testifying and etc. So I have a hard time with it. All right, who are 5 authors that you recommend who actually got their facts and stories right? I said this before. Selwyn Rabb is a good writer. Jerry Capisci, certain books are good, certain books are bad and filled with bullshit. Scott Deesh is a terrific writer. TJ English is a good writer. But those guys are all really, really, really good at what they do. They don't take an opinion. They just state facts, and I know a lot of these guys aren't using third and fourth hand. Well, Jerry Capisci uses third and fourth hand information, but Scott doesn't. He's a great author, and I think he's up there with the rest of them. So go out and get books. Read. Not all books are factual. Some of them are based on innuendo. I have a tendency to enjoy books that have court transcripts because that sort of backs up what the author is trying to say. I'm probably the only fucking whack job who argues from the dark side of things. It's sort of like when you're a kid, you go to see the movies. You either wanted to be a cowboy, you wanted to be the Indian, or you wanted to be the cop, or you wanted to be the robber. Me, I was always the nefarious one. Maybe that says a lot about me mentally, but I think there was always a thrill in watching somebody get away with something. Maybe that puts me in a certain stereotype and a mental way of thinking, but that's just the way I've always been. All right. In a mob war between families, say, for instance, the Gambinos and Colombos, it shouldn't be hard to find other family members for the most part. The families all live pretty much in the same area, so why is it so hard to find these guys on the streets? Well, here's the thing. If you're talking like prior to 1980, because after 1980, this stuff pretty much went away. Well, unfortunately, recently we've seen a lot of this stuff, but prior to the mid 80s, it sort of ended a little bit. Listen, guys go on the lam, guys go on the run, guys hide out. There's always a pulse on the street. There's a pulse on the street that you get that you're in trouble, that something's going on, and you just sort of watch your back. It's easy to disappear in New York City. I don't know if this person who asked me this has ever been here, but you can hide anywhere in New York City. You cannot be found if that's what you want to do. So it's not as difficult as you think, but in terms of like picking up your monies and doing this and that and conducting business, that's when it becomes sort of a cloak and dagger, a cloak and dagger sort of style event. Ultimately, you really totally cannot hide. Eventually, there's been guys that have tried to hide out and eventually get caught and get shot or whatever. But I think that for the most part, for the sake of this question, I think that it's easy to hide for a while, but you can't do it forever. And you also gotta figure, you got heat. You got to avoid the cops, you got to avoid the FBI, you got to avoid all this and that. So today it's not as easy to do that. Even though we have seen a couple events in the last couple months that sort of refute what I just said. All right. What are the chances, in your opinion, that Carmelo, and obviously this is a question about Anthony Carmelo, who is the guy who shot Frank Cali. What are the odds, what are the chances, in your opinion, that Carmelo may have been put up to the Cali hit by someone within the Gambinos or one of the other families? That's an interesting theory, and that's one that's been talked about a lot in the circles that I'm in. And I'm not going to answer this specifically right now, and I know who answered this. Just make sure you listen to the Frank Cali portion of the show, and I will talk about that specifically. There's just some things that aren't sitting right with me about it, but once again, it's an opinion not based on fact, just based on what I know and what I don't know. Sometimes appearances can be very confusing in a lot of ways. What I will say now, and I will probably regurgitate this again in 25, 30, 40, 50 minutes an hour, but the thing is that I think the reason why the press, and I think the reason why street guys and other people are finding this so hard to fucking believe, and this is what's leading to all these crazy conspiracy theories, is because it was done so easily. When something is done professionally so easily and the person has no ties to any sort of criminal organization that we know of, it makes it hard to accept. And I totally get that because everybody wants the headline. But sometimes it is just what it is. All right. Pound for pound, taking into account Boss Capo Soldier, who was the most successful mobster of all time. To me, success is a lot of things. It's money, it's being able to avoid prison, and it's commanding a group of guys or running a family without a lot of interference. And I think for my money, Tony Salerno, Carlo Gambino, and Russell Buffalino are the top three. I don't think you're going to get any better than that. Sure, there's people that have made probably more money than them, but the fact that they were able to avoid, all three of these guys were in their like fucking late 70s, early 80s when they get arrested. And so I think that when you have longevity on the streets and you run your family like a well-oiled machine without a lot of interference, that's what makes you successful. That makes you successful. And I think in this particular case, those are the three that I think that were the most successful. Even the Chin. Vincent Gigante had a long run. Ray Patriarca had a long run. So guys that have long runs without FBI interference and can pretty much, while they're on the radar, still sort of be seen, but they can stay out of the mess. Those are the guys that are successful. All right. Oh, I know who asked this. Did Anthony Mira really bang Goldie Hawn? I don't know. But if you look at the show that I did on Anthony Mira, he was kind of twisted sexually. So I think just screwing around with Goldie Hawn wouldn't have been enough for him. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to YouTube, type in Mob Talk Radio, go down to the Anthony Mira show, and I talk a little bit about that. He was sort of a freak in a lot of different ways. So I think that, did he? I don't know. You'd have to ask her. She's still alive. But I don't know. I don't know. I've heard a lot of rumors that he did, but then again, we have a lot of guys that are talking about banging celebrities and all this crazy nonsense anyway. So, listen, egos are huge in this sort of lifestyle, and so there you go. All right, let's see. Recently, I came across a video of Sonny Franzese talking, and allegedly Newsweek is going to run a spread on him, and he is talking. What is your stance on that? Does that make him a rat? First of all, he's 102 years old. He's not going to talk about anything criminally related, probably just the history of it. Does that make him a rat? No. He's 102 fucking years old. It would be different if he was running out, spilling on all his crimes and stuff like that. Then we're like leaning in another direction with that. But he's 102 years old. I think he's retired. He's done. He's at the end of his life, and he's entitled to talk if he wants to talk and share stories about banging Marilyn Monroe and knowing Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. That's stuff that people want to read. But if you think for 1 second he's going to talk about anybody or anything of consequence, you're out of your fucking mind. It's just not going to happen. So in my opinion, no, it doesn't make him a rat. He's old, and he's at the end of his life, and he's reflecting on things, and so let it be. Let it be. All right. Is it true that Jimmy Burke was a protege of Huey Mulligan and was close to Mickey Spillane, or was this just a rumor? No. Jimmy Burke was a protege of Huey Mulligan and Mickey Spillane. If so, why didn't Burke stay with the Hell's Kitchen crew? Because he was never really in with them to begin with. He was under Paul Vario, doing his own thing. He was aligned with the Gambinos as well as far as the airport went. And I just don't think Jimmy Burke, for some reason, when we think of Jimmy Burke, a lot of people, I guess, think of Robert De Niro from Goodfellas or whatever. But Jimmy Burke really was in deep with the Italians. He didn't need the nonsense, especially there was a lot of nonsense going on in Hell's Kitchen at the time. I mean, Mickey Spillane and his whole fucking crew were wiped out in a matter of months. The mob took it to them very quickly. All right, what do you think of Henry Hill's claim that Jimmy Burke was the one who actually ran the Westies? Henry Hill is full of shit. Henry Hill was a fucking rat. Henry Hill lied nonstop. He made himself bigger in that life than he actually really was. He was a fringe player. Never somebody who could get respect from like other mob guys. They all thought he was a fucking joke and a junkie. So the idea that he made all these kind of claims, he can make all the claims he wants. But the reality is, no, Jimmy Burke did not run the Westies. All right, when was the Colombo family at its most powerful, in your opinion, under Joe Profaci, Joe Colombo, or Carmine Persico? Well, we could take Joe Colombo right out of that mix, honestly. Joe Colombo had a big mouth. Joe Colombo got the Colombos in some shit. We've talked about that before. I also did a show on him. Once again, you can go to YouTube and look up Joe Colombo or whatever and hear my thoughts about that. So it really comes down to two, Joe Profaci or Carmine Persico. I think Carmine Persico was the strongest of the three, but Profaci and Persico had their own problems. Obviously, Carmine Persico, they had the Colombo Wars and stuff like that going on. And there was an issue with Profaci because Profaci didn't like to pay anybody. He didn't let his guys make money. These guys were always struggling to make ends meet. And Profaci was a lot like Bonanno in the sense that, and maybe this is an unfair knock against Joe Bonanno, but one of the problems Bonanno had too was hoarding money. Profaci would hoard money and just be a fucking dictator with everybody. And that's why the underlings didn't like him. And ultimately, Bonanno would sort of take a lot of the rackets that Profaci did have. But I think for the sake of this question, I think of the three, the most powerful probably was Carmine Persico. Probably a hell of a lot more feared than the other two guys. So I think the Colombo family at its most powerful was probably under Carmine. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but you guys let me know. And also, per the usual, you can follow me on Twitter at RealMobTalk7. Send me your messages, complaints, hatred. I get that shit all the time, so I can deal with it. All right, was it Carlo Gambino who decided himself to rename his family after he took over, or was that decision made upon the approval of the commission? No, it was a deal between him and Vito Genovese, where if Gambino helped Genovese attain what he wanted, Genovese would help Gambino basically take care of Anastasia, and then Gambino just named his family. Nobody was going to say anything at that point, because the minute that Anastasia gets whacked and Gambino takes over his own family, he really becomes the powerhouse of the mob. And it remained that way until he died in the late 70s. All right, what is your take on the Hollywood Godfather Gianni Russo? All right, I've been waiting for this question for weeks. This prick has been all over TMZ. First of all, he goes on TMZ. They're asking him about the Frank Cali hit. Now, I don't really understand why the fuck you'd ask him, because this guy has lied from day 1 to day 682. He looks like he's 682. He knows people. That's the truth. He does know people. He has hung around people. He knows serious people. But here's the point. He said, Frank Cali was born in Sicily. No, he wasn't. He was born in New York. If you don't even know that fact, then everything that you utter out of your fucking lips, cracked lips after that is bullshit. Why they're asking, I don't know where this resurgence of Gianni Russo is coming from. He was never really in any fucking films after The Godfather to begin with. Worth a fuck anyhow. And he's just basically running his mouth and getting attention. That's all it is. I don't buy anything this guy has ever said. I think he's a liar, especially when you come out of your mouth that this was a Sicilian hit and Frank Cali was born in Sicily. People are going to be very upset, and I knew him. A, he didn't know him. That's the first lie. Second lie is Frank Cali was born in New York, and if he knew Frank Cali, he would know that. So the thing is that Gianni Russo's full of shit. He's looking for attention and got everything totally wrong. So how well informed can one human being fucking be if the minute that they open their mouth, it starts with a lie? You can't believe everything. Once you tell that lie, you look into a camera and say, well, he was born in Sicily. If you don't know the guy, don't say you know the guy. If you don't know that he wasn't born in New York, then you're a fucking jerk off. You don't know what you're talking about, and he doesn't. But a lot of the media was looking for people to talk about this, and a lot of people wouldn't. This is the jerk off they find crawling out of a fucking sewer somewhere. So it is what it is, and with all due respect to him, I get it. People ask him questions. He's getting a little spot fame. Fine. Go ahead. Do whatever. Doesn't bother me, but not. Guy's full of shit. Always has been. He tells a lot of great stories. None of them have been factually accurate. So it is what it is. If he likes to tell stories, let him tell stories, but don't take it seriously is all I'm saying. All right, Frank Cali gets whacked and he has no bodyguards with him. Don't all the bosses need protection? I mean, Big Paul at least had Tommy Bellotti. How close were Luciano and Gambino? Who was the smartest of the two? First of all, you don't need a bodyguard if you're not suspecting anything is going on. I think there is a myth that all these bosses walk around with 6 armed guards, and first of all, that brings attention. That's the first thing. Second thing is if they go somewhere and there's tension within a family, then you're going to see a situation where they have 1 or 2 guys with them. But to have a guy sitting outside of his house, it just, that's lore, that's fantasy, and it just further proves that there wasn't an internal issue there, that this was coming from an outside source, and that's exactly what happened. All right, how close are Luciano and Gambino? Friendly. I think that Luciano was weary of a lot of people. I think Gambino was one that he knew had ambition. But at the end of the day, by the time that Gambino really comes in power, Luciano was nullified anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Smartest of the two, I think really ultimately was Gambino, and I always say that because Gambino knew how to make money and he knew how to align shit. Not that Luciano didn't, but Luciano was sort of like the forefather for all this, sort of set everything up in a certain kind of way as far as the dynamic and the structure. But Gambino took this shit to a whole nother level in terms of making money. And I think you have to be very crafty to be able to do that. That and he was a snake in the grass. He was able to get where he got by being treacherous. Luciano was a treacherous guy, but I don't think nearly as treacherous as Carlo Gambino really sort of became. All right. Selwyn Rabb called the Bonanno crime family the most unsophisticated and brutal family, but Joe Bonanno claimed to be a benevolent boss. Who were some of the enforcers during his era, and how dangerous was his family before the family split? Here's the thing. The minute that Joe Bonanno really sort of started his shit, and wanted to take over the whole commission, wanted to whack Gambino, he wanted all the power for himself. The minute he did that, he gets shelved. He fakes his kidnapping, and it's done, and it's over. Bonanno had a lot of guys, serious guys, and I don't want to get into names and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he used a lot of Jewish guys too, by the way. But I think that they were most dangerous under 2 situations. They were dangerous under Joey Massino. Big time. I don't think people really understand, despite the fact that Joey Massino was a rat, I don't think that they understand at one point Joey Massino was the most powerful boss in the city and had the biggest, most powerful family. The Bonannos really came a far way after Joe Bonanno did his shit, and then the Rusty Rastelli stuff, and then Joey Massino sort of becomes in charge. Once he took over, he was a highly intelligent guy and really put the Bonannos together very strong. But as we see in history, what often happens is that we see guys snitch. And this is what happened in that case. Now, what Joey Massino could have been had he not informed, it would have been interesting to see, but I think the Bonannos would have totally been a powerhouse at that point. Could have rivaled probably the Gambinos and the fucking Genoveses at the time, because Joey Messina was a smart guy. But end of the day, he ends up becoming a cooperator, and it decimates the Bonannos. And they still haven't been able to stay out of trouble. That's like a revolving door. But I think that the Bonanno crime family was definitely very strong under Joe Bonanno, especially in the early days. But once he started his shenanigans, that sort of ended. All right. Who was the most powerful mob boss who ran a family from the can? Genovese, Rastelli, Persico, or John Gotti? Genovese didn't have much control. He did, but he didn't. Rastelli had a lot of power, but it was really Messina that was sort of running things. Rastelli was still in charge, but Messina was the playmaker in the background. Probably Carmine Persico was the most powerful guy who ran it from prison. I think that he ruled with an iron fist. He controlled the family until the day he died, and I think that that's just the reality of it. All right. If you were a capo in a family with a power vacuum and an unclear successor, how would you go in for the top spot? Which approach would you take as a boss, businessman or Cosa Nostra boss? You got to murder. You got to be able to murder. Listen, anytime you're going to take over a position when there's a power vacuum, is you have to be supported by those around you. You're not going to be supported if you can't make money. You're not going to be supported if you can't be violent. You have to have those two things, because money will endear people to you, right? But violence is the only thing that controls that. You can make a shitload of money, but there's always going to be somebody that wants your money. Machiavelli talked about this at length in The Prince, one of my favorite books. And it's one of the things that Machiavelli stands by is never give your men too much. Always give them just enough to want more. If you give them too much, they become selfish and they overthrow you. If you give them just enough so that they keep wanting a little more, then you can control them. And the only way that you really, really, really can control somebody is through fear. That catchphrase is, it better to be feared than loved. So I think in terms of that, I think you have to be violent. You got to make money. People have to respect you because you have a reputation that you will do what you got to do. And people will respect you because you're feeding them. And so I think that you have to kind of be both. I think anybody that becomes a direct businessman is a bad thing, because look at the case of Paul Castellano. Really becomes sort of a fucking, I don't know what the word is, like a conglomerate businessman. And he loses the respect of his men. What do his men do? They kill him. But if Paul Castellano was feared to the extent where they knew if they stepped out of line, he'd push a button and everybody would go, that sort of changes sort of a narrative. And I'm not saying Paul was that weak. I'm just saying that he had more of a perspective of trying to legitimize certain things than just straight up being a boss. But there is an argument to that I could make by saying, but sometimes when you are a businessman, you're not seen as much, and the focus isn't so much on you. So there's different perspectives, but I think you got to be able to be both. I think you can't just be one. You've got to be both. Violence keeps people in line, and money keeps them coming, and that's the way you got to do things. All right. Did Vito Genovese really give Joe Valachi the whole one bad apple can ruin the whole barrel speech? He actually did. And the second part of this question is, why wouldn't he have just kept his mouth shut and had Valachi whacked nice and easy instead of just warning him? Wouldn't it have been easier, and wouldn't it have changed the course of mob history if Valachi didn't have the chance to rat? It's an interesting question, but yeah, he did definitely say something to him. I think it probably would have been easier to just kill him and be done with it. But already at that point, Valachi had been talking. And so I think that the reality of Genovese is, first of all, in prison, likely never going to get out anyway. He wins nothing and loses nothing by killing him. It's already been done. It's already been taken care of. It's already sort of happening. But no, I wouldn't have wasted my time talking to a guy like that. There's a way that they handle that in prison, and that's the way that it should be. But I don't know. I don't know what his mentality was at the time. I don't know what he was thinking. I think it was more of a fucking warning. Really, you got to be able to read between the lines in some of this stuff, right? So I think it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek warning. But Genovese was a murderer. He killed people with his own hands. He wouldn't hesitate. So I think that was probably more of a warning in a sense. All right, if you could rename the 5 families to your choosing, whose name would each family take and why? Gambinos would never change. It's always going to be the Gambinos. Colombos probably would have stayed Profaci. I don't think that I would have allowed Joe Colombo to rename him after himself. The guy was a puppet. The Bonannos would just stay the Bonannos out of historical reference. The Genoveses would have never been called the Genovese crime family. I think that should have stayed the Luciano crime family, just as sort of a respect and honor to Lucky Luciano. I think that's really the only name that I think should have really stuck was Luciano's, and I do think that the Colombo should have just stayed Profaci. Lucchese's stay the same, etc., etc. But you know what? Joey Massino wanted to change the Bonannos to the Massino crime family, and it actually was taken to the commission, and they were like, no, you're not going to do that. Imagine that. You know, they change it to the Massino crime family, and he becomes a cooperator. That's only that could happen to the Bonannos. All right, have you read Willie Fapiano's book or the Chris Paciello book? If so, how accurate are those? I've not read either one. I will not read anything with Chris Paciello. First of all, his name is Ludwigson, not Paciello. Guy's a rat, a jerk-off, cunt. So I have no respect for him. Once again, we see cooperators cooperate. They rat on everybody. This prick is down in Florida, just opened a huge nightclub. Where the fuck's he getting his fucking money from? These guys, that's going to lead to a whole rabbit trail of shit, and I don't want to get into that. But no, I won't read anything about Chris Paciello and Willie Fapiano book I have not read. All right, what is your stance on guys who left the life and write books? Oh, boy. Here's my thing. I think anyone that leaves the life and decides they want to write a book, fine. Well, what the fuck do I care if you want to write a book? I think, however, if you write a Mafia book, then you sort of are the antithesis of what the Mafia has never stood for. I think Joe Bonanno doing it was repulsive. I think guys that leave the life... Listen, everybody has a right to make a dime. Everybody has a right to write a book. I'm just saying, from my perspective, I think if you walk away from that life, you leave it there. I just think that's where it needs to stay. But who am I? That it's just my opinion. I think a lot of these guys allegedly leave the life, and then they write books and they make a couple of dollars here and there. But I think that if you're going to join a group like that, and that tells you to some extent how the mob has gone soft. And when I say soft, I mean, difference. It's different from, say, the 1950s. You did that in the 50s, they'd kill you. It's over with. 60s, they would fucking kill you. 70s, they'd probably kill you. It'd be over with. So I think that if you leave that life on your own terms, you have a right to do what you want, but I also think you should have the respect enough to just keep your mouth shut and go find something else to do. Go play fucking tennis or something. I think writing a book about your life in terms of the Mafia is repulsive in a lot of ways, but then again, what I do... Just to be fair, for those who are rolling their fucking eyes, but just to be fair, I'd have been whacked for doing what I'm doing. So I think that there is an argument to and for it. To me, I'm not a real big fan of it, to be honest with you. But guys are entitled to do what they want to do. I know that guys that do that are not respected by anybody in the streets. I know that for sure. I just think, look, that part of my life is over. I'm going to write a book about the fucking Venus flytrap or some shit. You don't need to write about your past crimes and throw people into murders and throw people into crimes that may or may not have happened. So, to each his own. To each his own. All right, we know Gotti whacked Paul to take over and save himself, but he really could have just waited it out. However, with Paul going to prison, do you think he would have made Bilotti boss? Absolutely, that's probably the way it would have went down. Bilotti would have been put in as acting boss, most likely. Paul would have probably attempted to run the family from prison, but I don't know if he had the strength by then or the power to be able to do that, keep people in line. Would Bilotti have been able to keep people in line? Listen, he was a tough guy, but I don't think so. I think even if Paul doesn't get killed and he goes to prison, I still think you're going to see Gotti move regardless, and I think that's just the reality of it. All right. Carmine Persico just died, and Sonny Franzese is really the last of the old-time gangsters. Would you agree that they're just a dying breed? Absolutely. Listen, and this is no disrespect to anybody, but with the exception of like probably 4 people that are allegedly in the streets today, there is a good old days of the mob from like the 30s through the 60s, where this was the Mafia was something totally different than what it is today. They still operate the same. They still do a lot of the same stuff. But I think the honor, I think some of the loyalty, I think some of the way that they deal with things is different. And there is a generational and ethnic gap as well. You no longer really typically have people from Italy running things. You have Americans running things. And the American Italians have a different mindset than Sicilians from overseas. There's a different mindset. There's a different way that they operate. Even today, I see that with people. And I think it's changed. The dynamic has changed. They've lost some of the luster that they had. That's not to say that they're weak or they're not strong. They are very strong. But it's a different mindset. When old Italians came over from the other side of the world, they had nothing. They had 12 kids. They had to do whatever they had to do to survive. I think what we're seeing typically today, and not to get into a socio-economical sort of standpoint on it, but I think when you're raised in a, not in a poor family, but a median income type of family, there's no struggle there. So you're making a choice to join a criminal organization out of whatever reason, but the originating reason was for the Italians to protect themselves against the Irish, the police, and the government and everybody else. So it's taken on a very different sort of thing. It's like the old thing that I say to people sometimes. I say, listen, you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, not a gun. Okay? Go back to the 20s, the Depression, and all of this kind of stuff, and the tenements and everything. History is different. The time periods are different. And I think that guys that came here with a fucking dollar and a dream, were willing to do whatever they needed to do to survive. I think today it's different. You're born in a nice house, you're in a nice community. It doesn't make sense to why you would choose to go that way, but some people do. And that's only they can answer that. But I think that it was out of a necessity in the old days, whereas today I don't think that's really the case. All right. What do you think of Frank Cali's reign as boss? Did he do enough to go up there with the likes of Gambino and Gotti? All right. So let's preface it this way. First of all, John Gotti had like a 4-year run, okay? Gotti has always been sort of the face of the mob. And there's another question that I have revolving sort of around him being sort of the face of the Mafia coming up, and I don't want to get too much into it. But I think realistically, first of all, we don't know a lot about Frank Cali. I can tell you that he was highly respected. He ran the Gambinos like a well-oiled machine. He was loved everywhere. So the question really becomes, did he do enough? Well, how much is enough? He didn't bring down a crime family. He didn't get a lot of people arrested. He didn't get life in prison. He stayed relatively under the radar. So we have to ask ourselves how we're going to base this. Do you base Carlo Gambino being a success or his reign as boss based on the money he made, the no indictments that came, the fact that he died in his own bed and not in prison? We have to have the parameters of what makes somebody that. So I don't even think you can really compare Gotti. Putting Gotti and Gambino in the same sentence is ridiculous to begin with. They're two different people. Gambino was a huge success. Gotti was a failure by a lot of accounts. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. And I'm not bashing the guy. I'm just saying you can't compare a legend to a guy that had a very short run. 8 years, something. Not even like 8 years. I think it was like 4.5 years as boss. He didn't last long. But I think he gets that notorious moniker, and we'll get into that further down here. All right. In the past, bosses have met in secret, or in some cases publicly. You almost get the image of the Godfather. Do you think this is how it would have been conducted in the old days, or even in the current times? or do you consider this pure fiction? No, look at the Havana Conference. They all met there. Look at Appalachian. They all met together. They have met together since the beginning of time. How they do it today might be a little different, but they still meet. There's still business to discuss. I don't think there is so much of an emphasis on the commission getting together these days. I think it's bad for business, but I think it still happens. You just would never know. Rather than it taking place in a restaurant, it probably takes place at a graveyard or someplace really creepy or weird. I don't know. I'm not in that life. So I don't know. But I think it's safe to assume when something really, like I think with the Frank Cali hit, I think you probably saw some people sitting down over that. But they're not going to do it publicly, and it's not pure fiction. It's something that really, the Havana, like I said, the Havana Conference, Appalachian, those are all events. There was also a convention in Atlantic City that happened where a lot of guys got together. So, no, it definitely happens. Probably not as much these days as it used to. Then again, the operations of the Mafia are so different than they were from, say, the 60s that, who knows? All right. Why was the chin spared? Why was the chin spared after the failed hit on Frank Costello? I don't know. That's a very strange question. I still don't understand specifically why the commission stood for that, why they allowed Vincent the Chin to get away with it. I think it's probably most likely because Genovese was a fucking nutcase and nobody wanted to fight with him. The Bananas Wars and the Colombo Wars and all this shit was going to be happening, Castellamare Wars and all of this shit. I think the mob was just, you know what, it's been done, let's let it go, and just move on. And also the fact that Genovese was supported by other people, especially Tommy Lucchese and Carlo Gambino, that doesn't help either when he has guys on his side. That's probably realistically why they didn't kill Vincent Gigante. All right, what was the relationship between Gambino and Gigante? As far as I know, they were friendly, not overly friendly, also rivals. But from everything that I've ever heard, they got along. But you also have to understand at the time that Gambino was at his full power, Gigante wasn't. So I doubt very seriously there was a whole lot of communication between them because Vinny the Chin didn't take over until like the 80s. So therefore, Gambino had already been dead. So I can't really say specifically, but from everything that I've heard, they got along. All right, was Virginia Hill a mob hit? All right, first, who was Virginia Hill? She was the girlfriend of Bugsy Siegel, but most importantly, she was the front for the mob in many aspects. She originally really kind of gets into the mix with these guys because she was banging Charlie Fischetti, who was the cousin of Al Capone and also Al Capone's bodyguard. And it was actually Fischetti who sent Hill to New York to keep tabs on Joe Adonis. And the reason was because many people felt that Joe Adonis was stealing money and they wanted close tabs on him. They didn't want him to rise too much. Plus, Adonis was really responsible for a lot of the union rackets. And they wanted to just make sure that was sort of running and functioning the way it was supposed to. She kept a close tabs on him basically by banging him. There's no other way to really to clarify. She was banging everybody. While with Adonis, she ends up meeting Benny Siegel, but prior to any of this, Virginia Hill was actually a scam artist, and what she would do is she would marry wealthy men, she would divorce them, and she ultimately at the end of the day, she had 4 divorces and got $1 million per divorce. So obviously with 4 divorces, she had around $4 million, and she sort of becomes a socialite. She eventually gets with Bugsy, and Hill would be used to defraud the mob by taking money from the skim and basically, let me see if I could. She ended up defrauding the mob in a bunch of different ways, but she was taking a lot of the money from the skim and from the actual project to the Flamingo, and she was dumping it into Swiss bank accounts. It was actually Meyer Lansky who sort of confronted this whole thing with the rest of the commission and was able to confirm it. And it's widely believed that she pretty much was told that if she didn't help them set up Siegel, she would be killed. In fact, the night Siegel was killed, she took an unscheduled flight to Paris at the last second. In 1951, the Kefauver hearings forced her to testify against organized crime, which she denied profusely, even though Time magazine had called her the Queen of the Mafia. She'd end up getting indicted for tax evasion in 1954 and would flee to Europe with her son in 66. Hill died of an apparent overdose in Austria. People have long said the mob killed her for a couple of different reasons. They knew she was stealing money. They were afraid of what Benny Siegel might have told her. She knew about the inner workings of the Mafia. And she was basically using her knowledge of guys that were made in the Mafia to basically shake down everybody. She was also the mob's front person with Mexican cartels because she spoke fluent Spanish and she was able to set up trafficking lanes for the mob. At least that's what's been alleged. We can argue whether or not we believe that or not, but that's what's been said. She was also the mob's front, like I just said, for drug trafficking. She also was able to take money from Lansky and some of these other people and put them into Swiss bank accounts without them having without them having to get involved. So she's laundering money for them. But probably one of the best theories out there was that more or less what it was she had a huge tax lien prior to the alleged suicide, and basically she calls Joe Adonis, who she had a torrid affair with for like decades, and she basically tells Adonis, I need you to pay this tax lien, I need you to get me out of here, and if you don't, I'm going to tell everybody. Then what she does is start emptying the mob Swiss bank accounts. And ultimately, Adonis is forced with the situation. Not only is she now stealing from the mob again, but she's basically threatening to rat everybody out. And it's alleged that Joe Adonis had had enough, and he sent soldiers from Italy to Austria, where she was sat down at gunpoint and forced to take pills that ultimately killed her. So, did they kill her? I don't know. I wasn't there, but I think that when you gather all the facts together, I think it's very obvious what happened there. And I think, first of all, why would you have to force her to swallow pills? Just blow her fucking head off. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, why waste time with her, like, ingesting pills? Just shoot her in the fucking head, throw her in the Rhine River, and just be fucking done with it already. So I can make an argument for why they didn't, but I think if anything was done to her by nefarious measures, I think it was to silence her because she knew too much. Plus, then we can make the argument of why would the mob ever allow some girl to get that involved? So, would they or wouldn't they? Who knows? But I think for sure she had some involvement, and I think ultimately whatever happened to her, I think probably was by design. But it would be interesting to see if there was like a toxicology report on her. I bet you there wasn't. But like I said, they could have just thrown her off a fucking bridge and been done with it. So I don't see them wasting their time doing that. But she had a big mouth, and she was robbing the mob. What are you going to do? All right, if we had a boxing match between Albert Anastasia and Vito Genovese, who would win? Oh, Christ, I would love to. This is a great question. Yeah, a lot of people don't like these kind of questions, but I do. They make me kind of giggle in the middle of the night. Anastasia would wipe the goddamn floor with Vito Genovese. First of all, fuck the boxing match. Give one a fucking garrote and one a knife and let them go at it till the death. I think both of them are nutcases, but I think Anastasia would wipe the fucking floor with Genovese. Then again, Genovese was psycho enough where if he gets that garrote, spinning over his head, he could probably do some fucking damage. I got mental problems. All right. What are your thoughts on George Anastasia and Al Prophet debunking I Heard You Paint Houses? Well, here you go. I have a lot of respect for Al Prophet. I can't really say anything negative about him. What the fuck makes them experts? How do they know? Were they there? Did they have conversations? Did they pass a lie detector test? No, those are all things that Frank Sheeran did. What's the point in demythifying something that's been proven to be historically accurate? First of all, the FBI put Frank Sheeran at the top of suspects lists when it came to Jimmy Hoffa. Everyone in those circles said it was Frank Sheeran that did it. Multiple people. This isn't just like some fucking old fuck from Philadelphia who decides on his deathbed to make up a bunch of shit. The FBI was actually able to nail down flights proving that he took weapons that were going to Dallas for the JFK thing. They were able to concur and prove that was real. They found DNA of Hoffa in the car where Frank Sheeran said they rode together to this fucking house. Everything Frank Sheeran has said has been proven to be basically accurate. There are some things that are kind of sketchy, but DNA don't lie. How would a guy who didn't know what kind of car that Jimmy Hoffa fucking was in that day. How did he know that? So the point is that George Anastasia can say whatever the fuck he wants. First of all, George Anastasia wrote a book of lies. That's the first thing. He always writes books for rats. All right, that's the second thing. And they can debunk whatever. But what makes them a fucking expert? What makes the FBI an expert on the Mafia? You're not an expert unless you're fucking in it. I'm not an expert at nothing. I never said I was. People say that about me, but that's not the case. If I'm an expert, that means I know everything. Hook, line, and sinker. But I don't. But fuck them. They're just looking for headlines. Al Prophet I used to have a lot of respect for. I'm starting to lose it now because it's like, the fuck they're going to knock somebody else's book? At least he's writing a book on historical accuracies and not like bullshit rat fantasies. So, you know what? They can debunk and try to say that it's not accurate, but then again, I could point you to a million fucking facts that are completely inaccurate that these guys say are facts. So, you gotta win some, you lose some. Has anybody just ever sat down and read a fucking book and enjoyed the book for being a fucking book? Doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but if it's filled with fucking lies from beginning to end, I'd rather use it to wipe my fucking ass than read. Just enjoy a fucking book. Not everything has to be like 100% accurate. But I read the book, I Heard You Paint House. It's a great book, and I believe it to be accurate. And there's a lot of facts in it. So if you haven't read it, go out and get it. Obviously The Irishman's going to come out, and people are going to say what they want to say about it. But at the end of the day, unless you were truly there, you don't know, and you never will. All right. Compared to prison in the 1920s to the 1980s, ooh, that's a 60-year gap. Do you think made guys in prison get the same respect? Do they get the same respect as MS-13 and Aryans? You better believe it. Shot callers. Listen, the Aryans are nobody to fuck around with. They run a lot of prisons, but I do know that there are Italians in prison, gangsters that are shot callers. It's as simple as that. Every block has a shot caller, and to say that the gangsters, the mobsters run the prisons, I think those days are over. I think the Aryans, the skinheads, pretty much run those, and other prisons, the Crips and the Bloods and whoever else runs that. But no, they get the same respect there. Trust me, they do. All right. If you're a New York boss, what is absolutely necessary to maintain power within your family, gain power on the commission, in your opinion? Kill, kill, kill. Make money, make money, make money. Be able to sit down at a table and be realistic about things. Not everything always has to fall in your favor. Division of labor, I call it. Always, always, always. You don't have to appease anybody but yourself, but it helps when you can negotiate and make it fair for everybody. The guys who made it fair for everybody, the guys who made a lot of money, and the guys who were willing to murder, those were the most successful, and I think that's what you have to do. All right, a lot of people say after Angelo Bruno got whacked, the Philadelphia Mafia lost its prestige. Your thoughts? Different time period, different people, different scenarios, different logistics. That's not to say that they did. That's not to say that they didn't. I just think it's a different time period. It's a different fucking time period. And never mind, like, Angelo Bruno getting hit. But look at what came after him. Testa gets fucking blown up. Nicky Scarfo, like a fucking ranting maniac with a Michael Myers mask and a fucking knife, goes all through South Philly killing everybody. I think really, like, Bruno getting whacked is one thing. Testa's never given really a shot to run shit because he's killed shortly after because now there's a power struggle. And then Nicky Scarfo does the fucking magician hat with the rabbit and an axe. That was a bigger issue for Philly than anything else. And I don't think you could say they lost their prestige because, under Bruno there was a lot of discontent. No, prestige, no. I don't think they lost any prestige. I just think that it's a different dynamic there. It's a younger group, but it's a tighter group in a lot of different ways. And I've talked about this a million times. I don't want to regurgitate it. But like I've always said, you cannot knock a wall down when its foundation is tight. It's as simple as that. All right, at the end of the day, a mobster is a mobster. Why do you think guys like John Gotti continue to be the face of Cosa Nostra, even when there have been others like Vinny Gigante, who had a longer reign, was more profitable, and was able to actually stay out of jail for a long time? Well, that's an interesting thing. Why is Al Capone the face of the mafia? Because Al Capone typically really wasn't a mafia. or a mafioso. He was a street gangster. There's a difference. I think for the sake of this question, look, John Gotti made waves because of who he was. He didn't back down from the FBI. It's basically like saying, I'm a fucking gangster. What the fuck are you going to do about it? Okay, and that's the reality of it. If he doesn't go out on the streets, if he stays away from the limelight, if he doesn't have everybody meeting at a social club on a fucking Tuesday night, knowing the FBI is watching, then I think the dynamic changes. And you also have to look at John Gotti's reign. It wasn't very long. He became boss and was like put in prison. Ridiculous. He didn't have a 10, 15, 20-year run. He had like a 4-year run. And that's much to the detriment of a bunch of different things. And it's not nitpicking, but I think that people that, what are the words? I'm trying to look at, trying to put this in a way that makes sense. You're going to put a photo of John Gotti on your mantle. A guy who was arrested very shortly after he took control, ended up dying in prison, etc., etc. But then there are other people like Carlo Gambino, Tommy Lucchese, Tony Dux Carollo, fucking Tony Salerno, Vinny Gigante, who really, Ray Patriarca, who had long reigns as boss. It's not to slam Gotti, it's just to say that for some reason he's become the antithesis of what the Mafia is visually. I think you will find that there are those who are going to say that he was a great guy, and then there are going to be those that are going to say he was a scumbag. There just doesn't seem to be a middle ground when it comes to John Gotti. People either love him or fucking despise him. And everybody loves him for different reasons. Everybody despises him for different reasons. But I think because of he was a good-looking guy, he dressed well, he really became the Al Capone of his generation, and he was seen visually. Guys like Vinny the Chin walked in a fucking piss-stained bathrobe down the street muttering incoherently about dildos and tampons all day long, and people thought he was fucking Looney Tunes. The FBI comes to his house, he's in the shower with a fucking umbrella over his head. He does Looney Tunes shit, and he stays the fuck off the streets. But Gotti was different. Gotti put himself out there and showboated himself, and I think when you do that, and you're recorded, at least visually, you're easy looking on the eyes, you have a sort of celebrity-styled sort of character. The media made John Gotti John Gotti didn't make himself that media star. That's where a lot of people get it wrong. The media made John Gotti a celebrity. And I think that there could be a good argument made that he should have dialed it back a little bit. He probably should have. But then at the same time, what's a guy supposed to do? Sit in his house as a fucking prisoner? No, you go out at 2:30, 3 in the morning. You do what you got to do. So I think John Gotti's always going to be the face of Cosa Nostra for probably because some of the other guys just don't get seen. They stay listen, how many photos have you seen of Frank Cali? 1 in 20 years. 1. There's a reason for that. He stays the fuck off the radar. He does his thing and stays in the shadows. That's the way it's supposed to be. Whereas some guys sort of reflect that whole thing. Other guys sort of like it. Or they say, fuck it, it is what it is. They're going to get me anyway, so I'm just going to go about my fucking business. That's one thing that you can say about John Gotti, you can't say about a lot of other people, is he threw it in the FBI's face 24/7, 365. Some could argue that wasn't the smartest fucking thing in the world, but you kind of got to marvel at a guy that says, you know what, I am who I am, fuck you. And that was John Gotti's sort of charisma, and that was his personality. So it's always going to be that way. It's always going to be that way. And listen, if John Gotti had like a huge mole on his face and like a fucking huge scar on his face, they're not going to take photos of the guy. He's a good-looking guy. So, I mean, and he was charismatic, and he was funny, and the press fucking ate it up. And that's why it is what it is. But I think longevity-wise and looking at certain other characters in that life, I think there are others that were a million times more successful than he would have ever been. John Gotti's sort of demise is because of John Gotti, and that's the truth. I think anybody that tries to tell you the opposite of that, oh well, you know, it's not his fault. Well, it is. You got to be smarter than that, and it is what it is. It's over. It's done with. And his place in history will always be exactly where it is. 1,000 years from now, they'll still be talking about John Gotti. That's just the reality of it. All right, so all that being said, that is all the questions we have for today. There is one question that I am going to answer in depth. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Frank Cali very briefly. It's not going to be very long, and then we're going to get into the one question, and then that'll be it. So stay tuned to Mob Talk Radio. We'll be back in a second. And welcome back to Mob Talk Radio. Now, really quick, I just wanted to say you can follow us on Twitter at RealMobTalk7. You can submit your questions for the Q&A over there. You can check us out on Mob Talk Radio. Also, on the paintings, we are going to be doing a massive sale and price reduction on the paintings. I will include the links to that as well. What else is there? I think that is about it. All right, so Frank Cali. Listen, you're not going to get any more information out of this than I already have talked about. But here's the thing: people are struggling with this because it, appearance-wise, looked like a mob hit by design, and it's probably harder to believe that some fucking whack job pulled it off. And that's what the media is having a hard time swallowing. And that's what I think a lot of mob genre people are having a hard time swallowing, that it was just some random fucking act that happened. And so here's my 2 cents on it. While it is hard to accept that some whack job did do this, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. Some people are blaming the government. Some people are blaming Sicilian factions. But here's what I think realistically. There's a couple of theories. First of all, I don't believe the government did it. That people that believe that, they have their reasons to believe it. I just particularly don't. But I think what is telling is how this was done. I think that some 24-year-old nut job who rams a car, then bangs on a door at a house where he's A, not supposed to be, B, he's been warned to stay away from a niece, and etc. Knowing those kind of facts, the fact that he was able to essentially pull it off relatively easily isn't really the fact. To me, it's not too hard to believe that this kid acted alone. But in the way that he did it, almost seemed like someone schooled him in how to do it. But that's not to say it's impossible. It's not to say that he didn't just fucking was a nutty fuck and just did what he wanted to do. But I particularly don't necessarily believe that this was just isolated. I don't think that this is just some nut job who decided, this is how I'm going to do it, watches a couple episodes of Sopranos and does it. I think it was executed highly proficiently, obviously. And I particularly believe that this likely, in my opinion, was probably, this kid was trained to do this. This kid was shown how to do this. This idea of this plan, I don't think this kid came up with on his own. So who would be behind something like that? I really can't tell you. Do I think it was internal? Absolutely not. I would have a tendency more to lean towards this was an overseas sort of action. But then again, you can't connect the dots to this kid with any Sicilian factions in Italy. So it's like for every step forward that I can take with this, I could take 5 steps back from it. And I don't think that we're going to come to sort of any kind of conclusion from this within the next year or 2 years. I don't think this kid's going to obviously, I don't think this kid's going to survive in protective custody. Somebody's going to get to him at some point, and it's going to be over. That's just the reality of how doing something like that is going to create a lot of havoc. He's not going to survive in prison. Somebody will take a run at him, and that's going to be that. We've seen in the case of Whitey Bulger how long that lasted. He was in a prison, a day before they killed him. So from my perspective, everything about Anthony Comello that I've been able to digest in the last couple of weeks really has just been, I find the way he did it to be proficient, and I just don't think somebody, and I could be totally wrong, and this could be just some nut job fuck, but I totally think that this kid was, at some point, someone showed him how to do this. I just don't think, because anytime a situation like this happens, right, you try to put yourself in a situation, well, what would I do? And it's sort of brilliant in terms of what he did. I'm not saying that in a positive way. I'm just saying that the way he pulled it off was not complicated. It was very simple. And I also think there's so many misleading things that the government has put out. Like they said, there's no tapes of this guy getting on the Verrazano, no tapes of this guy getting on bridges. Yet it's proven that he just fucking left the fucking neighborhood, got right on the interstate, and went back to New Jersey. So there's something that we're not being told, and I think that more and more is going to come out. I know that per sources, they're still investigating, still asking him questions. The police have said that they're still not ruling out organized crime ties and et cetera, but I think probably, it's tough for me because it's like, it's almost impossible to believe that some fucking nut job could do this, but the reality is that's what we're being spoon-fed right now. But just looking at the facts of how it was done, how it was designed, it's way too easy. But for those that are making the argument that somehow this is a government conspiracy, well, I mean, the thing is that, Frank Cali is not going to be afraid of some punk kid either. His guard naturally wouldn't be up. But you also have to ask yourself, this guy apparently had a thing with the niece and was told to stay away, and then all of a sudden he shows up at the house. That's like a big red flag for me. So I don't know how much of the investigation that has been leaked out or the facts are accurate. The FBI does this. They will put out not untruths, but they will bend and manipulate the facts because they want a certain narrative out. They obviously don't want people to know exactly what happened, so they're only going to put out bits and pieces of information to see if they can corral informants that'll come forward and tell them more actual facts from the case. So it is my belief that this kid did act very much alone, but I do believe that there's a bigger conspiracy involved here, and I think the reason why I say that is because of how it was done. This is not... Listen, you could take 1 million people off the streets of New York and say, okay, you're going to kill this guy, and they're not going to come up with a 100% success rate on the first time out. He was caught via, and here's the other thing, and this is the point I want to make. It was so clear and concise what he did. Rams the car a bunch of times, goes and rings on the doorbell, gets Frank Cali out of the house. Why does he touch a fucking license plate with his hand? He's been so proficient in every little step that he's taken. That's the one thing he fucks up on, is putting his hands on a license plate, which gives his prints, which draws the FBI straight to him. It doesn't pass the smell test for me. So I think, as this investigation moves on further, I think the reality that this came from, there's two realities here. I don't think it came from government. Okay, take that off the table. If there's going to be something that we can base anything in reality, is there were problems in Italy with his extended family. They were warring over in Italy, as far as what I've been told. And so therefore, if that's the case and there's that going on, there are people that maybe would want to send a message, but why are they going to use Anthony Comello, a fucking nobody? Well, that makes perfect sense. Everybody needs a patsy. Everybody needs somebody to do something that is relatively unknown. But do I think it was inside? No, I don't. I've never thought that. But the way it was done, the proficiency that it was done, excuse me, allergies. But the way it was done sort of leads me to believe that there's a bigger sort of picture here. But by all accounts, Frank Cali was a very well-loved human being. I feel horrible for his family. The rat piece of shit fuck that did this is going to get what's coming to him eventually anyway. But I just have a hard time believing some of the stuff that's coming out. Doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means that I'm basing it on from things I've seen in the past. It just, a lot of this doesn't pass the smell test, and there's too many questions. But once again, I go back to like what I said at the opening, is that it's hard to believe because it was so random. And it's sort of like, I hate to use Elvis Presley as a fucking reference, but everybody, there's a whole section of the fucking world that believes Elvis Presley is still alive and faked his own death. So, I mean, this is going to be a conspiracy for history now. But we'll see as it moves forward what happens. But like I said, I just, to me, this isn't random. I don't think this is random at all. And I think somebody walked this kid through how to do something, and we'll see what happens. But as the investigation moves further along, we'll talk more and more about that. Okay, so to get to the question, one of the questions was, and you guys are really going to have to be patient with me about this because there's a lot of information, and it's going to create a little havoc for me, but that's fine. Was basically, I'm going to summarize the question, was, why do you think it is today that juries are no longer believing the FBI or informants and more guys are getting acquitted? Now, that's just not a simple answer. There's a lot of things. The very short answer to that would be, well, the problem is the FBI uses informants who consistently break the law from beginning to end. They hide exculpatory evidence and et cetera, et cetera. But let's sort of get real specific, because this works not just in an organized crime way, but it works in a lot of things. And obviously, if you've been watching the news with Donald Trump, the president, and everything, with Mueller, McCabe, and all this crazy shit that's going on, and I'm not going to get political, but I think one of the mistakes Donald Trump makes is he blames individuals rather than blaming the system. The system is fucked. It's not individuals. Certain individuals are doing their jobs, but the system is fucked. The system is rigged, and this is nothing new. This has been going on for the history of the FBI. But let's look at the Merlino trial specifically for a second. There were several agents that get in trouble over a bunch of different things. One was allegedly taken off the case. One was reprimanded. And taking that on its face, look at the informant in the case, J.R. Rubio. He broke laws while he was under the FBI's watch. He was told not to carry on an illicit affair, which he did. 90 of 100 and some days, J.R. Rubio was pretty much allowed to do whatever the fuck he wanted without any FBI supervision. He attempts to blackmail a prosecutor, and that's just sort of the beginning. Take Whitey Bulger, for example. The gross misconduct of John Connolly. Not only did Connolly protect Whitey Bulger and Stevie Flemmi, but he went as far as to instruct them about investigations, tipping them off. He falsified FBI documents, inaccurate and inept 302s. He accepted bribes, and Connolly is perhaps the worst example of this bunch. But Connolly actually ended up getting convicted of murder and racketeering. Lynn Del Vecchio, another FBI agent who handled Greg Scarpa, leaked confidential information to Scarpa dozens of times, according to reports. Del Vecchio would inform Scarpa on which members or associates had become informants, and he allegedly informed Scarpa about bugging devices, even warning Scarpa that his son was about to be indicted for drug trafficking. Del Vecchio gave Scarpa tips on how to find soldiers who were backing Vic Arena's faction. Del Vecchio was accused of helping Scarpa commit crimes and helped cover them up. While DeVecchio was never brought to charges after a 2-year investigation, it ruined his career and reputation. It's also worth noting that 19 of the convicted mobsters from the Orena faction had their convictions overturned or reversed as a result, and some cases were even tossed out after lawyers argued that DeVecchio's actions casted great doubt on the evidence against them in court. In 2006, DeVecchio was indicted. The U.S. attorney alleged that DeVecchio helped Scarpa kill 4 people in the 1980s and 90s, but supplanting information to Scarpa. He was basically supplanting information to Scarpa so he could find them, but those charges eventually would be dismissed. So we also look at the case of Salvatore Gravano. The FBI gives him a sweet deal, 5 years for 19 murders. While the majority of the murders that Gravano conspired or committed were actually from his own devices for gain, financially, etc. John Gotti was blamed for each one of those things, but Gravano explained that Gotti basically ordered them. But the truth is, via wiretaps, that Gotti complained that Gravano was lying. He was killing everybody for his own means, his own pockets. And it was so bad that when Anthony Gaspipe Casso became a cooperator, he was able to unhinge the FBI, and he made comments that Gravano was a huge drug trafficker, which Gravano had never divulged to the FBI, which presented a problem for the government. If Gravano was selling drugs and, per his cooperation agreement, allegedly told them all of the crimes he committed, this would be a big problem, and it would also put the Gotti conviction sort of in a fucked up state. So what the FBI does is they rescind Casso's plea agreement and they tear up his cooperation agreement. And the reason was given by the federal government that Gaspipe was shaking down people in prison, blah, 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 causing problems. But in reality, he was speaking out against their star witness, creating doubt. And due to the pressure of that, the FBI effectively shuts him up by ripping up his cooperation agreement. And that's not to say that like one bad agent ruins the cart. But we've seen in case after case, especially when it comes to informants, they continuously break the law under FBI supervision, continuously lied under oath to simply get out of jail free cards. And the problem goes much deeper than just face value. It's a sample, and just a sample of what I've seen published by the FBI themselves. I just want to read you a couple of headlines, and this is per the FBI actual page. March 11th, 2019, investigative summary, findings of misconduct by Bureau of Prisons warden for directing a prison renovation project without acquiring required approvals and involving improper personnel. February 18th of 2019. Findings of misconduct by a U.S. Marshal and Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal for harassing and making retaliatory comments about supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshals, retaliating against another Deputy U.S. Marshal for filing a grievance and lack of candor. June 29th of 2019, findings of misconduct by a senior Department of Justice official for ethical misconduct, sexual harassment, sexual assault, and lack of candor. October 16th of 2018, findings of misconduct by an FBI official for accepting gifts from members of the media and lack of candor. October 10th of 2018, findings in misconduct of 3 FBI employees, 1 FBI task force officer for violating Department of Justice and FBI computer rules of behavior and FBI policy by forwarding a United Kingdom intelligence report regarding the Manchester Arena bombing and other sensitive restricted emails. August 6th of 2018, findings of misconduct by an FBI special agent for receiving gifts from a former FBI informant, using the informant after that informant had been deactivated, then protecting the source and protecting the source's illegal businesses, misusing FBI assets for personal gain, lack of candor, and computer security policy violations. April 30th of 2018, findings of misconduct by an FBI special agent for contacting witnesses for improper purposes, divulging law enforcement sensitive information to unauthorized people, providing misleading testimony, providing false information to OIG, mishandling classified information, and misusing government devices and his position. And so that's a big part of the problem, and that's not to say, and listen, there's 1,500 fucking more cases of this. This isn't just anything like new. This has been going on for a long time. But what about the prosecutors? Perhaps one of the biggest problems is the prosecution not handing over exculpatory evidence. They are obligated by the courts to hand over evidence to the defense, but I've seen it time and time again how certain things never show up, or there's certain types of evidence where the judge will either accept it or suppress it. For example, if you have tapes that clarify and prove your innocence or make the person testifying against you look like a liar, oftentimes those items are not allowed to enter the trial. In the Joey Merlino trial, that was a specific issue. So why? Well, if someone is proven a liar, why can't you use that against them? I mean, I'm not a judge or whatever, but I've seen federal judges and judges on the state levels, and all levels for that matter, allow or disallow these items, and most of the time they're disallowed. It's okay if an informant uses tapes because, once again, he's being overseen by the government, but there within lies the problem is the government oversight. Who is watching the FBI to ensure that they're doing anything proper? I'll just wait for your answer on that one. True fact, the cause of wrongful convictions in cases where there was a conviction that was overturned based on new DNA evidence found that there was prosecutorial misconduct, 42%. That is insane. There's prosecutorial misconduct and 42% of the convictions where they were overturned. Another fact, the credibility of the FBI has seeped into juries, which is what this question was about. The number of convictions in FBI-led investigations has declined in each of the last 5 years, dropping to 11% over that period. Public support for the FBI has dropped too. They went from 71% approval to 61% approval in 2 months. The Parkland shooting, remember that? The tip center in West Virginia got a call, and the caller basically gives her name and said she was close to the family of an 18-year-old in Parkland, Florida named Nicholas Cruz. She informed them that Cruz was posting photos of rifles that he owned and animals that he had mutilated, and that he basically wanted to kill people. She listed his Instagram accounts, his social media accounts, and suggested that the FBI just look into it, saying that she was worried about the thought of him getting into a school and shooting up the place. An FBI specialist checked Cruz's name against a database and found that she wasn't the only caller. There was another caller who had called 3.5 months earlier, basically saying that he had a YouTube video where he said he was going to be a professional school shooter. So what does the FBI do as a result of that? Nothing. They don't pass it on to a supervisory agency. They don't pass it on to Florida. Nothing. 6 weeks later, Cruz killed 17 people in a school with an AR-15. What about Omar Mateen? He killed 49 people at a club in Orlando in June of 2016. The FBI investigated him twice on terrorism charges, but due to lack of evidence, they let it go. It's ridiculous. The FBI convictions went from 11,461 in 2012 to 9,832. This is the 5th consecutive year that the numbers have dropped. The FBI has only won less than half of its cases referred for prosecution. The conviction rate last year alone was 47%, and it fell well below the average, which was previously 72% for all agencies. So the question is, why aren't juries buying it? Some of this has to do with Donald Trump and his assault on the FBI and the Justice Department, and I get it. It's not individuals, it's the whole entire fucking thing. I think it's also the fact that the government relies on informants. The problem is that the government will always make an argument that, like, I just saw one recently that said, listen, you know, the people that we put on stands against people are not saints. They've done horrible things. But here's my point. If you have shown to be a fucking miscreant, lying, jerk-off fuck, then if we put you on the stand, we should have the right, to, if I'm defending myself, to call your credibility into question. And so there's a very gray area there between the fucking federal government, the prosecution, and the judges when it comes to trial. If I could play you a tape that said, and I'm just using Joey Merlino as a reference here because he's a popular topic, all right? If I played you a tape with someone saying, Joey didn't do nothing, I've been trying to get him involved in all this, and he keeps telling me, no, fuck off, I don't want to do anything illegal, that's illegal, and the judge refuses to allow that, why is that? If that tape exonerates your informant's direct testimony, why can't that be played? What moral argument can we make from a federal guideline or a federal standpoint that makes any sense? Same thing could be said for exculpatory evidence. If we take evidence, and we see this all the time, especially with like CNN, Fox News, big-time name journalists who put out information on a certain case or a certain trial that's going on, and information comes out or whatever, and, information always finds its way out. And what I find hard to believe is that if this is information that's going to come out in a trial anyway, what's the fucking difference? When you look at Bill Clinton and they put out the fucking report, there were reports that Clinton was getting a blowjob from a fucking girl in the Oval Office, Monica Lewinsky, etc. That shit hit the newspapers like crazy. And so you essentially, the information is out there, and it's going to come out anyway. What's the difference? And so the argument that I'm making is I think that for a long time the system has been weighted in the government's. First of all, the government always fucking has the upper hand. They have the upper hand because they have a blank check they can continue to spend. The government can also use fucking informants. Doesn't matter what their fucking past is. They don't want their clients' past to be put out in public, and they don't want their clients' past lies to be put into trial because that ruins their fucking case. But you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why is it lopsided? I thought that the way that the justice system was supposed to work was innocent until proven guilty. But it seems like this country has flip-flopped in a lot of ways, and you've become guilty before anything. You're guilty in public opinion. You're guilty before a trial starts. It's ridiculous. And so, yes, are there horrible FBI agents? Absolutely. But that's the thing, is you have to look at this realistically on a case-by-case value. That's the truth. But the fact is that as long as the government is going to be allowed to use rats and guys that have committed atrocious crimes, and they're going to reward them by saying, you tell us this, this, and this, and you can have a nice fucking day. Well, wait a minute here. How is that fair in any sense of the fucking word? And yeah, I get it. The FBI has said on record, just like the DEA and all these other agencies and the NSA have said, well, if we lose informants, we lose our cases. Then your information isn't good to begin with. Because the job, go take it back to elementary school. You played cops and robbers. What's a robber's job? To rob and get away with it. What's a cop's job? To fucking arrest them. But they have everything at their fucking disposal in the world to convict somebody. But then if there's evidence that proves their innocence, they want to suppress that and get that thrown out of trial immediately. There is merit and there is value in tapes, good and bad. But if you just take something as simple as the Merlino case, and there's other tapes where this guy is threatening to blackmail a fucking prosecutor, those are things that a jury needs to hear, because from the perspective of, okay, this guy is sitting down, he is going to, tell us A, B, C, and D. Well, if he's going to tell us A, B, and C, and D, and he has a checkered past, maybe I'm not going to believe A, B, and C. And I think that there needs to be more emphasis on truth and facts and evidence versus the opinions of the federal government. Anyway, that's just my stance. And like I said, it's not 1 or 2 or 5, because for every 5, there's 3 or 4 that do their job honorably. But the system is fucked. The system has been fucked for a long time, and that's why you're seeing juries not believing it anymore. Yeah, that's why you're seeing it. And that's the truth. This isn't just happening because people don't like the federal government. That's not what this is about. It's because they see what the government is doing. They're not always fair. They're not always balanced. And that's the problem. When you have judges, listen, it's ultimately up to a judge to decide to allow this information or disallow this information. But if it's something that exonerates you, what the fuck is the problem? And so maybe I don't understand the judicial process from that perspective. But this stuff has to stop. This stuff has to stop. And I've seen it in case after case after case after case after case. The validity of informants is 0%. 0%. I have never seen, maybe the exception of one, who ever told somewhat of the truth. In 99.9% of the cases I have seen, cases witnessed myself, watched, invested time in reading court transcripts, you see how the witnesses lie and get caught lying. That's the reality. And as long as our country is going to be devoid of allowing people to snitch on other people and telling other people with checkered past, there's a moral argument there of, well, he's given up the greater good and, he's changed. None of these guys change. They just don't want to do jail time. And they will invent shit. And I've seen it a million times. They invent shit. I blasted Rubio every day for fucking 3 months, and he went fucking crazy on me. Crazy on me. You're lying, you're not telling the truth. Okay, here's a fact, 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 here's a fact. Then he had nothing fucking else to say. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, so next week we're going to be back with an all-new show, all-new topic, Q&A as well. And we're going to get back to business. In the meantime, you can reach out to us on Twitter at RealMobTalk7. The paintings are going to be going on sale later on in the week. I will post that. Also, if you are into Omerta gear, the Stop Glorifying Rats shirt, the Intimidating All Witness shirts, you can get a 10% discount if you go to their site, omertamia.com. Type in Mob Talk Radio in all caps. Get yourself a 10% discount on your total purchase. All that being said, everybody have a great week. We will be back next week with an all-new topic, an all-new show. Send your threats, complaints, and whatever the fuck else you got to say to the usual places. Have a great one.